Welcome to Down the Garden Path. I'm your host, Joanne Shaw, landscape designer and plant lover. I enjoy discussing down-to-earth tips and advice to help you seasonally manage your garden and landscape, and I also aim to bring you interesting and relevant topics to educate you all about the landscaping and horticultural industry. Hello, everyone, and welcome to this episode of Down the Garden Path podcast. Thank you for joining me here again today. This is the third installment of Houseplant Chat with me, Joanne Shaw, with Down the Garden Path podcast. Thank you for joining me. I hope you enjoyed the first couple episodes. The first one talking about lighting and the importance of lighting in the winter for your houseplants and some things you can do to mitigate plants that might need more light. And episode 2, I talked about soil and the importance of repotting plants that need new soil, and might be a little root bound, as well as if you are an overwaterer, which tends to be a common problem with people with their houseplants. New soil helps. Proper pot size helps, as well as going to a pot in pot. If your decorative pot doesn't have holes, then putting your plant inside a plastic plant, and more of a disposable one with holes. And that way, if you do overwater, like an hour after you've watered the plant, you can lift it up. And if there's water still in the decorative pot, then you can dump it out. A little recap of us talking about water and or investing in decorative pots that have holes and saucers, which, depends on the size of the plant and solutions there. And also my suggestion to invest in a water meter. And that's like a little handheld tool that you can dip into or stick into the soil, and it'll give you a bit of a range on whether your plant is dry, moist, or wet. And that helps. So that's a little recap on Houseplant Chat 1 and 2. And so what are we going to talk about on Houseplant number 3? Houseplant Chat number 3. It's a mouthful, isn't it? Anyway, I'd like to talk about propagation. Big word, seems scary, seems complicated, but it really isn't. Way easier than seed starting and growing plants from scratch, that's for sure. If you have plants, now you definitely have, it depends on the plant. But there's a large amount of plants, and usually the ones that are more common, the more trailing plants like pothos and philodendrons, lots of other trailing plants. But I've done it with my rubber tree plant. I showed you in Plant Chat 2, and one of the cuttings from my large rubber tree plant. So it really depends, and you can research that a little bit more. But if I want to kind of focus on the easy things, just for the beginners, easy plants where you can, the trailing plants that you commonly see, philodendrons, pothos, they are very easy to propagate. So if you have, and this is a common issue too, where people have a plant that they've had for a long time, and it trails and trails and trails, and then there's nothing like at the top, top section of all the stems. And like there's all these green leaves kind of at the bottom, whether they're trailing around in a circle around like a stake or something, or they're trailing on shelves or on furniture. But yet when you look at the base of the plant close to the pot, it's bare. So there's a couple ways that you can deal with that or solve that or fix that. Is one, use that plant as kind of like a mother plant and cut off, take cuttings and cut off most of those stems, and very simply cut it with a clean pair of scissors or clean knife, clean pruners, and put them in water. You can even cut up one whole length and just cut in between the leaf nodes, and you'll see a little node. I'm going to show you on the YouTube, so I'll show you on the video. You can see this one where I have cut between the nodes and the base of the leaf, and then you can see that from that node at the base of the leaf, there's all these little bumps that occur, and then a root has come looks a little, it's a small cutting I've taken of a philodendron, and I did just that. I took a whole long stem and cut it into a whole bunch of different pieces. And this one that I'm showing on the screen right now just has one leaf. That's all it needs. And then it's in water. And it's amazing, one, how quickly they root, two, how long they actually last in water. So did you know you can even have like little vases of plant cuttings in water, sitting on a table, or sitting, sitting on an end table, or sitting on a shelf in your room, and they still look lovely. They still look like a plant. You need to remember to change the water and freshen it up a little bit, but they do great. And then when you're ready, whether you're ready to plant them all up into new plants, whether you're ready to just do a couple at a time and leave the rest in a vase, that's up to you. The other option is for that plant. So if you decided to not make that plant a mother plant, let's say, and take all those babies away, but let's say cut, a couple of the stems, but left, it's still growing from the center, but very bare. Well, you can take those trimmings and propagate them in water. In a month or so, depending when they root, sometimes faster. It's amazing how fast that can happen. But what you can do is you can plant those cuttings and those newly rooted leaves and plant cuttings, and plant them back in the base of that mature plant, where there's going to be gaps and stuff where the roots, where there are no leaves. So then you can start growing at the base of that plant that's gotten long and leggy. And now you've taken cuttings, like you've kind of trimmed the edges and then rooted them, and then you can put them back into the center of the plant, right into the soil, adding some new soil if it's really pot bound, transplanting it into a different pot if it is very pot bound, or just the soil looks very stagnant and old. That's something you can do. And then adding the cuttings around the base of that existing plant. And then it's great because you've already got the trailing happening at one end, but then now you're going to grow and kind of fill out the center to make it will look like a completely different plant. So I did want to talk about that and explain how easy it is to do. It's a great gift giving idea that you're trying to save money and you want to save money and give gifts, give houseplants as a gift. Then you can propagate many different types of plants this way. There's many different ways to propagate. So depending on your exact plant, there's air layering for something that's a bit more woody, which can be a little tricky. So it's a bit advanced. So I would watch a YouTube video on air layering. The first time I propagated my rubber tree plant, I did that. But then the second time, I just kind of winged it. It was very leggy, and it had gotten very wide and almost tippy, even though it was in a really good sized pot. And I know I had it in a low light condition and it was really reaching for the sun. So I kind of pruned it hard and got about 5 really good, good cuttings and good stems. And I attempted to put them in water. And even though it was a very woody plant, it did take longer to root, but they did successfully root. And so I think most of the plants you can do that this way. And I can't speak to your exact plant, but I wanted to give you that idea and let you know that is a very simple thing to do. I have a Hoya, which is a really kind of cool plant, very succulent looking. Look at those shiny leaves. Some of them have a little bit of different coloring on their leaves. And it's a tropical plant. It's a trailing plant. Again, podcast listeners, I'm just showing that picture of of my Hoya plant. That is a new cutting. And here's the root. So you can see how much of a root has developed. And then I've just potted up into new soil using that pot and pot idea that I told everybody about. So it's a great way. These take a little bit longer than I think the pothos or philodendron are the fastest to root. These guys did pretty good as well. And I love how shiny and the unique flatness of the leaves, and they do tend to look very unique in the way they group themselves. So they kind of, even though it's trailing, they still kind of trail in bunches and don't get as leggy as the pothos do. The other thing that's really cool about the Hoya, and I didn't know that because I had it on my wall for years, the mother plant to this one, they flower. So under the right conditions, they produce this really kind of interesting flower, like real clusters, and it's fragrant. Now, I've heard that some people have said that it's actually too fragrant. It's too strong of a smell. I have it on a wall in my bedroom, on either side of my large window, so it does get filtered light. And the 2 times it has bloomed, when I've walked up to it and approached it, I could really smell the fragrance. But from the large room, it's not like when I walked into the large room, I could smell the fragrance. So that gives you an idea. It depends on the size of your space. So Hoya is another a great example. Wandering Dude, Transcendentia with the purple and white leaves, and variegated kind of purple and dark purple and burgundy. It's a really cool plant. Propagates water very nicely, and that's a great one because you can even put it outside and put it in your annual container for the summer. So it's a cool one to try. So I've tried it with snake plant. I've tried it with many different things. And if you've got a lot of excess in a pot plant, I don't see the harm in trying it and seeing if it will root in water and going from there. So like I said, it's a great way to give a plant as a gift. It is a great way to pot up and something like a plant sale, or even, I think there's a lot of people, even on the internet, that are either rehoming their plants or starting new plants and propagating them and selling them. So you never know what you want to do with it. But it's definitely something to try, and I wanted to take the fear away from it. And also the fact that they can stay in the glass as long as you keep water in it. They can stay in a glass of water for a long time. Again, here is my pothos. Here, this came from my grandmother's plant, and I am planning to do that very thing in and putting more cuttings in the center of her plant that got very leggy. It's in a very wide, probably 24-inch shallow pot, so it's not super deep, but it's quite big, and it is very bare around the base of the plant. So I want to have it fill in a little bit. So you can see I just have it in a little mason jar, but I have a lot of cuttings in here. And I've done it in a big vase as well. So you can throw a couple of cut flowers from the flower shop in there, and you have a beautiful, simple arrangement. So that's something to try. So I wanted to just, again, chat a little bit about houseplants to take the fear away. If you're worried about them, or sometimes it's so backtrack is that sometimes maybe you were fiddling with it or moving it and something broke off. And you're thinking, oh, I've killed it, or I've got to throw this away. Trim it up a little bit, give it a fresh, clean, sharp cut, put it in water, see what happens. That happened, well, it didn't root, but that happened with an orchid. I had an amazing orchid. And I was moving it and I broke it off. And I couldn't believe it because the head was so full of white flowers that I put it in a vase in my bathroom, very little light, in a vase of water. And honestly, it lasted for 4 months. I did that in the fall, and it's January, and I just threw finally the leaves. It got me all through the holidays. This perky little white orchid in water in the bathroom looked amazing. So plants are not as scary as we think they are. They're not as fragile. Same with the outdoor ones, and we'll talk about that when we get to the summer plant chats. But I want to take the fear away from house plants for people and realize that they really are resilient, and they really do add something to the room. They look great, and it's just nice to have something living in your space, and they really can be a feature. I mean, I just love the structure of my ZZ plant that's behind me on my filing cabinet, and I think the snake plant behind it or beside it is doing well as also. And there's another I want to call it Hoya. So there's another one that is a little bit farther along on that bookshelf as well. So again, if you have any questions, if you have any specific topics you want me to cover in Houseplant Chat, please let me know. I'd love to hear from you. And I thank you once again. Please go and propagate. I'd love to see some pictures or have you share with me some of the plants that you have propagated, or if you just have a beautiful, beautiful vase filled with interesting foliage, that makes me happy too. This is another one. So this, oh, sorry, before I wrap up, this one kind of looks a little sad, but I have 3 of these vases in my powder room, and I have a shelf on the wall, and I have different plants on that shelf, all propagating in these decorative black vases. Actually, they're from IKEA. These were actually rubber. Isn't that interesting? But anyway, so it doesn't matter what they are, what the vessel is, but I have them on a shelf in a low light room, and they look great. They're decorative. It's green. It's added something to that space. And then when they've started to root, I can plant them up. So this is one I have. This is the angel wing begonia that I'm trying to propagate, and so far it's not happening. So I might have to do a little bit of reading, but you can see how much root is on this pothos here that I have done. And then this is peperonia, which is a bit more succulent. You can see how shiny it is, even more shiny than the Hoya. And the stem is much thicker, not quite woody, but it is much sturdier. And then you can see the root structure on it is much finer roots. But I have 3 plants propagating in this one vase that's up on a high shelf in my powder room of my home. And, you know, it's a great decorative feature, and nobody knows what's going on, and nobody can tell unless you took the vase down that it wasn't in soil. It's in water, and that's okay. And then it's easy to know when you need to add more water, because I just touched the vase and we're like, oh boy, that's pretty light. It needs some more water. So there's just some of my tips. I think especially those dark corners in our home, those bathrooms with no windows and low light, it's just an easy way to add some greenery, add a vase, clear vase, or any type of vase with some green leaves and water, and then you're done. It's so easy. And a great way to make more plants, to give away, to sell, whatever you'd like to do. So thanks again for tuning in to Houseplant Chat. I'm Joanne Shaw, landscape designer and host of Down the Garden Path podcast. And I love plants, and I love experimenting with them and sharing all the information that I know and love and research on with you all the time. So thanks for listening. Thanks for tuning in, and enjoy a little bit of houseplants this winter season. Bye for now.